There have been a couple times in the past that we have talked about Charlie Kirk and his death, his assassination, and the impact that he had. But today I wanted to focus more so on talking about Erika Kirk and all of the, I don't even really want to call it controversy, but just a lot of attention that she has gotten ever since her husband was assassinated. And I don't think that she has been treated fairly. I don't believe that she has truly received the sympathy that she deserves. And the sympathy that she has received has been oftentimes buried under the rabid conspiracies that exist online and that also exist within more mainstream, I would say specifically conservative realms. And I think that the treatment of Erica Kirk has kind of also buried the whole legacy of, not I wouldn't say the whole legacy, but it has distracted people from focusing on Charlie Kirk's legacy and the good things that he did. Now it's all just about Erica Kirk. Now it's just saying all these different things, making all these claims and insinuating, was she involved? Was she not involved? How much did she know or not know? All of these different things that I've seen. I think most of it is probably insanity. And the way that she has been treated is extremely disheartening. And I honestly don't really know what people were expecting. And what people need to understand is that being famous politically, it is unlike any other kind of fame that exists. And I'm not too familiar with Erica Kirk's professional life before she married Charlie, but she was, what was it, Miss America contestant or a a beauty pageant contestant in her state or something like that. And so she already had a certain level of celebrity, but being famous for political reasons is totally different. It's totally different. And I'm not saying that she is incompetent, but I'm saying that that is something that not everybody can do. Not everybody is cut out to properly and appropriately maneuver their way through the realm of politics and remain unscathed by their own words, by their own actions. I mean, it is a ruthless landscape of hateful people. And it's a landscape that she was just kind of thrown into. And so let's break it down. Okay. So she marries this guy. She kind of has, she has her own career, but then she marries this guy who's famous for being a political speaker. And she is the supporter behind the scenes. We know who Erica Kirk is. She's spoken at different events and with Charlie about marriage and about different things like that. We know who she is, and so she has some of the spotlight as well. But Turning Point USA is very much Charlie Kirk's. It was Charlie Kirk's thing, okay? And she was supporting that, okay? Well, he's off doing his thing, and he's just doing what he always does, debating kids on college campuses, and then he gets killed. And all of the sudden, she becomes the center of attention. All of a sudden, now she's thrown into a position of leadership. Is she going to be the leader of Turning Point USA? Is Charlie's legacy in her hands? And so she is thrust into this position where she now becomes the face of Turning Point USA, and she kind of becomes the political figure. Now she goes from being supportive wife with a career and is married to a political figure to becoming the political figure. And that is a huge undertaking. And again, I'm not saying that she's incompetent, but I'm saying that that is a radical shift. And I don't know why anybody's surprised. First of all, just dealing with the trauma, dealing with the trauma of your husband being shot and killed, being assassinated, and then all of the added trauma of watching people from all over the country rejoice in his death. I'm sure there's some amount of trauma, of PTSD, or what do you expect? You expect her just to grab the microphone and be this amazing political speaker? And I understand. Look, like I said, it's very hard. Like, you're moving through all of these various different situations. You're not going to say everything right. And some of the things she says probably comes off as shallow, or like she doesn't have any emotion, or she's not truly sad. But grief is a weird thing. And grief is especially a weird thing when you mix it with politics. And so yeah, it doesn't surprise me that she seems a little bit off. Would anybody be acting normally in that situation? I'm just saying. Because people have criticized her, well, she doesn't care enough, or well, she hasn't grieved enough, or she hasn't cried enough about Charlie Kirk. Do we really expect anybody in her position to be able to grieve and react naturally? I don't really think so. And so when some of these clips of her that I see that people are trying to use to paint her as like this cold-hearted, evil person, I just don't buy into it. I just don't buy into it because there's so many factors that you have to take into consideration. And and like I said, it's not easy to make that transition from being a supporter or someone, she obviously has a certain amount of celebrity again, but now she's the main figure. Now she's the leader. Now and it's not, again, I don't want people to take this. I'm not saying that she's incapable. It's not that I think that she's incapable. I'm just saying, given everything that's happened, I don't exactly expect her to be acting normally. And for people to use her maybe somewhat odd behavior as an opportunity to insinuate that there is some kind of gigantic conspiracy with her being involved in the conspiracy, I think is insane. It is insane. And I feel bad for her. I feel bad for her children. And it's sad that Charlie Kirk's legacy has now become a breeding ground for various different conspiracies on how much his wife knows. How much does she know? What is she not telling us? And I'm sure there are details, and look, I'm sure there are details that we don't know about that are very private to her and to the people of Turning Point USA. I don't necessarily think that it's evil to withhold all of those details, and withholding the details doesn't always mean, especially because it's not like it was her boss that got killed, it was her husband, okay? There's a certain level of personal connection there. There's a certain level of personal privacy that occurs in that situation. And just because Erica Kirk might be not sharing every single little detail does not mean that she is somehow an evil person or doesn't care. And I actually saw this. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter what she does. People just always, well, she didn't cry enough, or she cried too much. And Matt Walsh actually talked about this. I don't listen to Matt Walsh, but I think he posted it on Twitter. He was basically saying that whatever she does, it doesn't matter. Like, people will not leave her alone. People will not give her a break. Like, if she's crying, then she's faking, or if she's not crying, then she's saving face, and then she's always acting. That's how people view it. That she's always acting. Whatever she does, it's always just an act. And I don't believe that. I think that she is in a very difficult situation. I think she has been, her and her husband and Charlie, she had to deal with people scrutinizing him all the time. Now all that scrutiny is coming directly her way. And so it's a very difficult situation. I I feel bad for her. I feel bad for her. And these uh I would say more right-wing conspiracy nut jobs that nonstop basically harassing her I think I think it's just crazy. I think it's crazy. Something else I wanted to talk about, Tucker Carlson released I believe it was on Twitter. Tucker Carlson said something about the Islamic view of Jesus, and his quote specifically was Tucker Carlson said, quote, "The people in charge don't want you to know this, but Muslims love Jesus." And I feel like this quote was made, or he said this in, I don't know if it's willful ignorance or just ignorance generally, but it certainly lacks a lot of context. Within the bare bones belief system of Muslims, within Islam, yes, you could say that they love Jesus. But again, you got to add in the context, because the Jesus that they love, the version of Jesus that Muslims love, is not the same Jesus that Christians believe in. It's not the same Jesus of the Bible necessarily, because Muslims do not believe in Jesus's divinity. They do not believe that he was the the son of God. And from what I understand, they don't even really believe that God would come down in human form and express himself that way and set the example that way. They don't believe that God would reveal himself in that way. But they believe that he was a prophet. They believe that he was a teacher that fits into the religion of Islam, but they do not believe in Jesus' divinity. Okay? And so saying that Muslims love Jesus, it's like only based upon their interpretation of who Jesus was. And I think that a little history lesson is important here. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I am an expert on Islamic tradition and historical teachings and the early teachings of Muhammad, but here is the way that I understand it based upon the research that I have done. Okay, in the earlier teachings of Islam, in the early teachings of Muhammad, Muslims, Christians, and Jews were not at odds with one another. What Muhammad believed was that Muslims, Jews, and Christians, they were all three parts of one religion. They were all in many ways they were the same religion. And Muhammad claimed to be the final prophet. And so if you claim to be the final prophet, that or the last prophet, that suggests that there were prophets before Muhammad. And this is what the teaching was. Muhammad believed that Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, they were all a part of the same story. They were all part of the same religious value system. And each generation had a central religious figure and a central religious text for that generation. So the belief was that the Jews had Moses, who was their intercessor. He was the intercessor between them and God, and they were given the Old Testament scriptures. And that's the first generation. The second generation was Jesus was the central religious figure, and through him we were given the central religious text for that time period, and that was the New Testament. And then Muhammad comes along and claims that he is the last prophet, he is the final prophet, and he has been given the final revelation, which is included in the Quran. And so Moses fits into Islam, Jesus fits into Islam, not as the Messiah, not as the Son of God, but as a prophet. And Muhammad was the one that was supposed to go around and fulfill all of this and put all of this together, right? And part of his mission, part of Muhammad's mission, was that he was going to go around to the different religious people of the time, at the time that he lived in. He was going to go around to the different religious people of the time, and he was going to give them the teachings of Islam, give them the final revelation in hopes that they would affirm his claim of being the last prophet, of being the final prophet of God. And so, again, remember, in the beginning, Christians, Muslims, and Jews, they were not at odds with one another. They were supposed to be like a universal belief amongst the three of them. There's like a you say brotherhood, right? The religions extend to women as well, but you understand what I'm saying. Like there was supposed to be some unity there. Okay, so Muhammad, he goes to the people who practiced Judaism in his time, and he tells them all of these things. He tries to explain all of these things. He says, I am the final prophet, I'm the last prophet of God, and we are supposed to unite together. And the Jews go, well, we don't believe you. We don't believe that you are who you say you are. We don't believe that your teachings line up with our teachings. We don't believe that you have been given the last revelation from God. And we are not going to affirm your claim of being the last prophet. And so, what Muhammad does, he says, okay, well, it's not the Jews, Christians, and Muslims versus everybody. Now the Jews are infidels. Okay. So now it's just the Christians and the Muslims versus everybody. And after that, he does the same thing with the Christians. He goes to them, he goes to the practicing Christians of that time, and he reveals his teachings, he reveals his supposed revelations, and he tells them that he is the final prophet of God. And the Christians go, we don't believe you. We don't believe in what you're saying. We don't believe that you have been given the final revelation. We don't believe in your interpretation of who Jesus is, because interpretation is coming way down the road, way down the road. Why would we believe what you're saying about Jesus over what the eyewitnesses, over what the Gospels say about Jesus? Right? Because in the Gospels, Jesus is, and in the Bible broadly, Jesus is presented as the Son of God. He is the Messiah. He is the one that sets the example for us. He is divine. Like in the Bible, Jesus has divinity. The Muslims don't believe in Jesus' divinity. They just believe that he's a prophet. And so it's like, we don't believe what you say about Jesus. And so we're rejecting your teachings, and we are not going to affirm you as the last prophet of God. And so Muhammad goes, okay, well, then you are also infidels. And so now it's just Islam versus everybody. And that kind of mindset has carried over into the modern day within various different sectors of Islam. And so, yes, the Muslims love Jesus only when they take him out of the true context of Jesus's life, his death, his resurrection, him being the Son of God, him being the Messiah, him being whom the Christians look to for examples, him being the ones that Christians worship. And it's really weird. How can you claim that Muslims love Jesus, but then also you have some sectors of radical Islam that treat the Christians very harshly? Like they obviously don't like the Christians if they're executing them, which has happened, and it's happened multiple times. And so it's like you say that the Muslims love Jesus, and and I don't want people to get confused. It's not all sectors of Islam that are killing Christians and executing Christians. I'm saying within the most radical sectors, that is what is happening. And so it's very weird to say that Muslims love Jesus when they take him out of the original religious context, and then they also treat Christians who believe that Jesus was the Messiah very harshly. Okay, and so it is a comment made in ignorance. It is a comment made in ignorance. It might be accurate in terms of the Muslims believing that Jesus was a prophet and historical figure within the religion, but it's totally taken out of context. It's totally taken out of context. And you would think that Tucker Carlson would be able to sort through that a little bit more thoroughly than he did. Just to say that, well, people don't want you to know this, but the Muslims love Jesus. Like that's a very surface level. That is a very surface level way of viewing history and what actually took place and what the Muslims actually believe. Now, I saw that this tweet, I think Tucker Carlson, I don't know if it was a tweet specifically made on Twitter first, that quote, but I think this was partially done in response to Trump. I've seen it attached to the picture of Trump. Trump posted a picture of himself basically as Jesus. So it was the robe, it was the traditional sash that you would see over the robe that Jesus would wear in various different works of art and paintings and pictures and things like that. And it was like him healing and protecting in America. And I'll try to be consistent with this. I remember, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I didn't support Trump. I voted for Trump twice. I'll be very open and honest about that. But I have been critical of the people. They have taken Trump, and I've said this before, I said this years ago, that people who take Trump out of his political role and then place him into the role as of savior, of that he is Jesus Christ, he's being like Christ, that's crazy. And I think that's kind of disrespectful, because while Trump has political function, like Trump, I voted for Trump. I believe that some of the things that he has done have been good. I also think that some of the things that he has done has not been so good. And one thing that he does that's not so good is that it's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword. I do think that Trump was fed up with the media, and so he actually started using media to fight the media, and that's why he's always on Twitter. But he opens his mouth a lot about stuff and says a lot of dumb things. That is true. And some of the always Trump people, the people that will just worship every single thing that Trump does and that Trump is never wrong, those people have taken things way too far in how they view him. They have lifted him up to the status of like this religious figure, and I just don't think that that's necessary. And these were the kind of things that people were saying when Trump was in one of his, I don't even remember if it was like, was it a trial or an indictment, or he was trying to be impeached for the 37,000th time. Um, there was a drawing of him in the courtroom. Like, they couldn't have pictures, but you would see those drawings come out on social media, and it was Trump sitting in the courtroom. And I opened up the comment section, and all these people were like, "Oh, look at Trump. He's being so Christ-like. He's taking it for us. Like, he's taking the punishment for us, just like Christ did. He's standing in the gap for the American people, just like Christ did." And I'm like, that's taking things a little bit too far. It's taking things a little bit too far. To lift Trump up to the level of Christ is, and for you to view him that way, is taking things way too far. And if that's the case for the people that support Trump, in some cases, then I think it's also true to say that of Trump's. Like, dude, it's unnecessary. It's like whatever he does, whatever interesting thing, or any of the things that he says on Twitter that might be relevant, or if he tries to punch at the left on Twitter, is immediately followed up by something stupid. And posting yourself basically as Jesus Christ is kind of stupid and unnecessary. And and I really, to me, Trump doing that is not very surprising. Like, that doesn't surprise me at all. Trump posting himself as Jesus does not surprise me one bit. But the fact that there are so many people that actually think that that is the role he plays in all of this is crazy. People actually view him that way. And I think he kind of knows that. And so when he does, I was like, okay, that's just Trump being, it's just Trump kind of being dumb. But the people actually view him as that level of figure, like almost like a religious figure, almost like a religious figure. And that's crazy. So I want to be consistent on that. Believing Trump is, um, basically like the modern day version of Jesus Christ is insane. And then posting yourself as Jesus Christ, healing and blessing the nation, also kind of insane. So I don't know, man. It's just ridiculous. And I think that people, whatever kind of high that Trump inspired, that MAGA inspired, people just need to come down from that a little bit. People need to come down. He's president. He, he fulfills his role as president. He serves as a political figure, but I think that lifting him above being a political figure and into the realm of divinity is crazy.